Good evening, dear listener. Wherever you are, whether lying in bed with the soft hush of night all around you, or simply searching for a moment of peace in your heart, I welcome you. Tonight, we begin a journey unlike any other. A journey not across mountains or oceans, but through the quiet valleys of your own spirit, through the soft, dim corridors of memory, through the ache of what once was and the gentle release into what can be. Maybe you've carried things for too long, a word left unsaid, a wound left unhealed, a moment in time that never stopped echoing inside you. This is a space for you to breathe, to loosen your grip, to listen, not just to my voice, but to the soft murmur within you that has waited so patiently to be heard. These are not just stories. They are whispers. Whispers that know your sorrow without asking, that speak not to your mind, but to your tired, beautiful heart. Over the next 3 hours, I will walk beside you story by story. Each tale a lantern, each lantern a step into freedom. Not the kind the world demands, but the kind your soul remembers. So take a breath. Feel the bed beneath you. Let your hands relax. Let the night wrap around you like a warm robe. And when you're ready, we'll begin with the first story. The Gate of Forgetting. Part 1. The Gate of Forgetting. The old road curved gently like a sleeping serpent beneath the moonlight. Moss clung to stones that had forgotten they were once carved by hands. Leaves rustled without wind, as though whispering to one another in a language no longer spoken by people. And in the heart of this timeless silence, a figure walked alone. He was neither young nor old, though his shoulders had learned the shape of sorrow. His name, once spoken often in rooms of laughter and regret, no longer mattered. Let us call him only the Seeker, for that is what he was, one who had grown weary of carrying what could not be undone. He had heard of the gate from a monk with eyes like weathered wood and a voice that sounded like rain falling on dry leaves. There is a place, the monk had said, where memory cannot enter, a gate that opens only to those ready to forget, not what happened, but who they became because of it. The Seeker had nodded, though he hadn't understood. Not then, not fully. But something within him, something small and cracked and ancient, had stirred like embers under ash. So he came, through valleys soaked in silence, over bridges built from questions he no longer asked, until he reached the gate. It was not grand, nor carved, nor adorned. In fact, it was so plain it was almost invisible. An arch of worn stone in the middle of an overgrown field. But the moment he stepped before it, his knees weakened, his breath caught, because the gate, in truth, was not outside him. It was inside. A memory rose unbidden. His father, silent and closed like a sealed book, standing in the rain as the Seeker left home the final time. No words, just the weight of everything unsaid. Behind that, another. The day he failed to show up when someone he loved needed him most. Their eyes, full of hope, then confusion, then quiet. Another. The gate pulled them from him like a tide, drawing away leaves and bone. Not to punish, not to judge, but to show him what he carried. And then the guardian spoke. He hadn't noticed the old man before. Thin, translucent almost, sitting cross-legged beside the gate. He looked like someone memory had forgotten. His face was soft with time, like paper held too long in sunlight. "You can't walk through," the guardian said gently, "while you're still wearing your past." "I'm not wearing anything," the Seeker replied, uncertain. The guardian smiled, eyes kind. Oh, but you are. Regret is heavy like wool. Shame clings like silk. Anger rusts like iron inside the chest. The seeker fell silent. His heart felt swollen, tight. I don't know how to take them off, he whispered. You don't, the guardian said. You feel them. The seeker hesitated. Isn't that what I've been doing all these years? No, the guardian said. You've been repeating them, feeding them. Feeling is different. It is the art of letting something be, so it can become something else. The seeker sat down. The night was thick and tender around them, and the gate shimmered faintly, as though it too was listening. Tell me, the guardian asked, what pain are you most tired of remembering? The seeker closed his eyes. He did not choose a dramatic tragedy, not the funeral, not the betrayal, not the war. Instead, he chose the moment he looked into a mirror 10 years ago and realized he didn't like the man staring back. That moment, simple, sharp, unforgiving. He spoke it aloud, slowly, honestly. And then the guardian did something the seeker never expected. He laughed, not cruelly, but with warmth, like the chuckle of a grandfather who sees through a child's illusion. You believed that reflection was true, the guardian said, but it wasn't. That was not you. That was your wound looking at its own shape. A silence followed, the kind of silence that heals. The seeker lowered his head. What happens if I go through the gate? He asked. You lose what was never truly you, the guardian replied. And what remains? You. A breeze stirred the grass. Somewhere an owl called. The seeker stood, legs trembling like a child learning balance. He turned toward the gate. It pulsed faintly, not with light, but with the echo of every truth he had denied himself. And so, without knowing what lay beyond, without needing to know, he stepped forward. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the memories didn't vanish. They softened. The faces still existed. The pain still echoed. But they no longer lived inside him. They were stories now, just stories. And the seeker, for the first time in many winters, felt light, not from joy, but from release, from being empty enough to begin again. Reflection and whisper. You see, dear listener, this first tale was never just about a gate. It was about your gate, the invisible one that appears in your mind each time you say, I can't let go. I wish I'd done differently. I'm still carrying what they said. That gate is not far. It opens when you stop trying to fix the past and start honoring your freedom to live beyond it. So tonight, before sleep folds you into its gentle arms, ask yourself, what am I still wearing from yesterday that no longer fits who I am becoming? Breathe deeply now. The gate is here, and you are ready. Part 2. The Empty Bowl. The seeker walked, not because he knew where he was going, but because the act of moving forward felt more honest than standing still. The path beyond the gate was lined with trees that did not whisper, only listened. The moon had faded. The air was thick with the scent of quiet earth and something older than memory. He felt different, not healed, not whole, but emptied, like a bowl recently washed, still wet with silence. And in that emptiness, something unusual stirred, a hunger, not for food nor answers, but for something far more elusive, clarity. After some time, or perhaps no time at all, he saw a light in the distance. It flickered like a candle, unsure of its own importance. He followed it, drawn not by curiosity, but by the sensation that it had been waiting for him long before he was born. It led him to a hut, small, round, and made of stone and moss, like it had been built by time itself. The door was ajar. Inside, a woman stirred tea over a small flame. She wore gray robes, her hair long and silver as river mist. She did not look up when he entered, as if she'd already welcomed him with her silence. "Sit," she said, gently. He did. She handed him a bowl. It was simple, clay, uneven at the rim, empty. "Thank you," he said, holding it uncertainly. "You're welcome," she replied. "Now let it go." He blinked. "Let what go?" "The bowl," she said. "Set it down." He hesitated, but did as told. She poured tea into her own cup. Steam curled like incense. "You want to be filled," she said, "but you've never asked what you wish to be filled with." The seeker looked at the empty bowl. His hands twitched. "Peace," he said finally. "I think I want peace." She nodded. "And what is peace to you?" He paused. "The absence of pain?" She smiled softly, shaking her head. "That is not peace. That is numbness." Her words slipped into him like warm water into cold hands. "You believe peace comes when nothing hurts," she continued. "But in Zen, peace is what remains when you stop trying to avoid pain, when you let life pour itself into you without choosing only the sweet parts." She reached for the bowl and poured tea into it. Then, without a word, she took a pitcher of water and began to pour into it as well. Tea spilled over, onto the table, onto the floor. The seeker jumped up. "Stop, it's full." "Exactly," she said, setting the pitcher down. She leaned closer. Her voice was barely louder than the flicker of the flame. "Most who suffer do not suffer from what was poured into them, but from what was never emptied out." He sat back down, slow, quiet. "You cannot pour tea into a bowl full of yesterday's wine. You cannot hear the truth if your ears are echoing with old arguments." He stared at the steaming bowl, liquid dripping off its edge. "So how do I empty it?" he asked. "You already have," she said, "the moment you saw it was fall." A silence bloomed between them, wide as a valley. Then she reached beneath the table and brought out another bowl. This one was smaller, glazed in blue. The surface was cracked, but mended with gold, kintsugi. "This," she said, "was mine." He looked up. "I once believed healing meant becoming like new, unbroken, untouched by the past. But that belief nearly broke me more." She placed the bowl before him. "I learned that healing means becoming real, and what is real is often scarred, but never less sacred." He traced the gold with his fingers. "It's beautiful." "It is honest," she said. Then she leaned in, her eyes soft like dusk. "Let me offer you something tonight." She poured him tea. The aroma was light, jasmine perhaps, or something older. "Drink it slowly," she said, "with the part of you that no longer seeks to be anyone else." He lifted the bowl. It warmed his hands. Each sip felt like an answer he hadn't known how to phrase. Not because the tea was magic, but because he was different now, empty enough to receive, present enough to taste, quiet enough to listen. When he finished, she smiled and said, "Now you're ready for the next valley." He bowed his head. "What will I find there?" She chuckled. "Ah, the bowl is empty again. That's the only way you'll know." He stood, stepping into the cold of the night. As he walked away, he noticed the stars. He hadn't before. Reflection and whisper. Dear listener, how many bowls have you carried? Filled with yesterday's sorrows, tomorrow's fears, old conversations that still live behind your ribs? Tonight's tale reminds us, you don't need to become someone new. You only need to become someone empty enough to be real. So before you sleep, I invite you. Imagine a bowl. Your bowl. What does it contain? Whose voices echo inside it? What story, long past, still swirls in its depths? Breathe in. Let it be full. Now breathe out. And place it gently on the table of your awareness. You don't have to smash it. Just see it. Because in that simple act of noticing, you've already begun to empty. And once emptied, the bowl is not useless. It is sacred. It is ready. And so are you. Part 3. The Stone That Cried. The seeker moved deeper into the valley. The night no longer pressed against his skin. It flowed with him, around him, as if the air had learned his rhythm. There were no signs, no maps, only the quiet invitation of the path itself, worn smooth by other feet that had wandered long before his. He didn't ask where it led, not anymore. Something in him had shifted. The further he walked, the lighter his thoughts became. The questions that used to cling to his every breath had gone silent. They were still there, of course, but not screaming anymore, just whispering politely from a distance. That was when he saw it, a small circle of stones in the center of a field, lit by the silver spill of the moon. There was nothing else around, no trees, no houses, just the stones, worn and pitted, as if they'd weathered centuries of wind, silence, and story. He stepped into the circle and sat, and for a long time he did nothing, not out of discipline or patience or virtue, but because it felt right to be still, to not interrupt the quiet. Then a voice came, not loud, not human. It rose from beneath him, from the ground itself. "You've come to remember," it said. The seeker didn't move. "I've come to forget," he whispered. A pause. "Same thing," the voice said. He looked around, slowly. One of the stones shimmered faintly in the moonlight, its surface smoother than the rest, wet with something that looked like dew or tears. "You're the stone," the seeker said, more to himself. "I was once a boy," the stone replied, "like you." He tilted his head. "How did you become stone?" The answer came slowly, like water trickling through old wood. "One pain at a time. I buried every heartbreak, every word I was too afraid to speak. I clenched my jaw, my fists, my truth, until I became unmovable." The seeker leaned closer. "And why are you crying now?" "Because someone finally listened." The wind rose softly. The other stones remained still, but this one seemed to breathe. "I was like you," the stone said again. "I tried to heal by forgetting. I tried to forget by hardening. And I hardened so well, I lost the shape of who I was." A silence settled between them, thick, honest, unafraid. The seeker closed his eyes, and a memory returned. He was 16, sitting in his childhood room. The door closed, the lights off, his face in his hands. His mother had said something cruel, so small, so sharp, that it cut deeper than he had ever admitted. "You're too sensitive. You always ruin things." It wasn't meant as a sentence, but it became one. He never cried that day, not out loud. Instead, he swallowed it, layered it into his bones, let it settle where his voice once lived. And over the years, that sentence had built itself a temple in him. He opened his eyes. "I never cried," he said aloud. "Not then, not after." "And so you became like me," the stone replied gently. The seeker lowered his head. "Can a stone become soft again?" "No," the stone said, "but it can break." He looked up, alarmed. "Isn't that worse?" "No," the stone said, and its voice trembled. "Because from the cracks, something living can grow again." The seeker's throat tightened. He reached forward and touched the stone. It was warm, not from the sun, but from something within. Something long buried, still alive. And then, without thinking, he spoke to it, not as a man to an object, but as a soul to another soul. "I'm sorry no one listened. I'm sorry you had to carry it all alone. I'm sorry you forgot you were allowed to feel." He didn't expect anything to happen, but the stone shimmered, cracked, and from that hairline fracture, a single flower began to grow, white, delicate, unhurried. The seeker drew back, stunned, and for the first time in years, tears slipped down his face. Not loud, not desperate, just true. He cried for the boy he had been, for the silence he swallowed, for the feelings he had buried under the weight of being strong. He cried beside the stone that had waited generations for someone to see it. And when the last tear fell, the moon shifted overhead like a gentle nod. He rose. The stone no longer wept. It simply existed, lightened by release, honored by remembrance. As he left the circle, the seeker felt something new. Not lightness, not yet, but permission. Permission to feel, to soften, to not carry what was never his to hold alone. Reflection and whisper. And you, dear listener, have you too become stone in places no one else sees? Have you too swallowed tears because someone told you that softness was weakness? Tonight's tale is for that younger version of you, the one who wanted to cry but didn't, the one who was told to toughen up, to move on, to be strong. But here, in this quiet hour, I offer you something different. Strength isn't in silence. It's in honesty, in allowing one tear to fall, in honoring what you once denied. So I ask you, where in your body do you feel hardness? What memory clenched your heart and never let go? Place your hand there now, gently, like you're greeting an old friend who has been waiting in the dark, and whisper, "I remember. I see you." It's safe to soften, because even a stone can cry, and from that crack, something sacred can begin to bloom. Part 4. The Monk and the Letter. Dawn had not yet arrived, but the sky had begun its slow exhale into gray. The seeker walked beneath a canopy of ancient branches, the path soft with fallen leaves, the air cool like a breath held too long. There was peace in his chest, but also a quiet ache. Not pain exactly, but a tenderness, like skin freshly uncovered after a bandage was removed. He wasn't looking for answers anymore, only the next presence that might help him see what he still carried. And so it came as no surprise when he reached a clearing and saw a small temple made of pale wood and stillness. Its doors were open. Incense smoke curled like memories into the sky. A single monk sat outside. He was writing. The seeker approached slowly. The monk didn't lift his gaze. His brush moved in steady strokes across an old piece of rice paper. "I don't mean to disturb you," the seeker said softly. "You're not," the monk replied, dipping the brush in ink. "I've been writing you a letter." The seeker blinked. "Me?" The monk nodded. "It's what I do. I write letters I never send." The seeker tilted his head. "Why?" "Because most forgiveness never requires delivery." The monk finished his stroke, set down the brush, and looked up. His eyes were dark pools, quiet, kind, unflinching. "I write to those who hurt me, to those I failed, to versions of myself that never came true." He gestured to a stack of folded pages beside him, bound in thread. "Each one a breath I was holding, each one a weight I no longer carry." The seeker sat down across from him, knees folded like a child at story time. "I have people I haven't forgiven," he said. The monk smiled. "No one doesn't." "But they never said sorry." "Then let your freedom be louder than their silence." The seeker stared at the floorboards. A memory flickered. Her, the woman he had once loved, years ago. She had left without warning, no explanation, no closure, just a silence that echoed through his life like a bell no one answered. "I waited for her to say something," he whispered. "For years, I thought I needed the truth." "And what would the truth have changed?" the monk asked gently. "I don't know. Maybe it would have made me feel less invisible." The monk nodded slowly. "Ah, then it wasn't truth you needed, it was to feel seen." He reached for a blank piece of paper and held it out. "Write her a letter," he said. "I wouldn't know what to say." "Then begin with what you've never said. Say it not to change her, say it to free you." The seeker hesitated, took the paper. His hand trembled. He thought of the nights he replayed her last words. The days he imagined what she might have said if she'd had the courage, or if he had. And slowly, slowly, he wrote, "You hurt me, not because you left, but because you vanished as if what we had meant nothing. I carried that emptiness like a secret. I thought if I held it long enough, it would become meaning again. But it didn't. It only became silence." He stopped, breathed, then continued. "I forgive you, not because you earned it, but because I deserve to walk lighter." He looked up. The monk was still watching, still silent. The seeker folded the letter. "What do I do with it?" he asked. The monk smiled. "You can burn it, bury it, tear it up, or let it float away in a stream." The seeker thought, "Maybe I'll keep it." The monk nodded. "That's fine too. It's not the act, it's the release." The seeker leaned back, exhaling deeply. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you believe in closure?" The monk's eyes crinkled. "I believe in clarity," he said. "Closure is what we seek from others. Clarity is what we give ourselves." The seeker smiled faintly. It wasn't happiness, but it was peace, a quiet knowing. He stood, bowing. "Thank you." The monk bowed back. "Write often," he said, "not to speak to the past, but to hear yourself clearly." The seeker walked away with the letter in his hands. It was small, weightless, but inside him, something enormous had shifted. Whisper and reflection. And you, dear listener, Who lives rent-free in the back rooms of your heart? Whose voice still echoes, even though the moment has long since passed? You don't need to call them. You don't need to confront them. You don't even need to be heard. You only need to hear yourself. So tonight, as sleep begins to reach for you with soft hands, consider writing a letter to the one who hurt you, or the one you failed, or the version of yourself who's still waiting for kindness. Write it not to send, not to fix, not to explain. Write it so that your heart no longer has to hold the shape of their silence. And when you're done, fold it gently. Place it under your pillow. Let the night carry it where it needs to go, not to them, but to you. Part 5. The River That Held No Grudge. The path curved like a thought he almost forgot. By now, the seeker no longer needed to wonder where the road led. He walked as if the land itself had memory, and his feet remembered what his mind had not yet understood. The bowl was empty, the letter written, and still there was something he hadn't yet touched, something deeper, a wound older than any name. It came to him as a scent before he saw it, the scent of moving water, wet stone, moss warmed by sun. And then he heard it, the slow hush of a river speaking in endless syllables, never angry, never tired. The trees parted, and there it was, the river, wide, patient, and silver under the morning sky. He stepped toward it, and a memory rippled into being. Not loud, not sharp, but deep. It was the boy with the slingshot, 3rd grade. The seeker had been quiet, shy, bookish. The other boy loud, cruel, fast. There had been names, shoves, a stolen lunch, and laughter that echoed in the seeker's ears long after school let out. He hadn't thought of that boy in years, or so he believed. But here, standing before the river, he realized it wasn't the event that stayed. It was the shame. The idea that he deserved it, that he had somehow invited the ridicule, that his softness was weakness, and weakness was a stain. He knelt at the river's edge, watched the water slide around rocks like silk, unbothered by obstacles. A dragonfly hovered, then darted away. That's when he noticed her, an old woman across the river, seated on a smooth boulder, her reflection shimmering. She wore robes the color of dusk, hair long and white, braided down her back. Her eyes were closed. He didn't speak. Still, she opened her eyes. "You've come to wash," she said. He nodded. "If it's allowed." She smiled. "The river holds no grudge." He stepped into the water. It was cold, but not cruel. It wrapped around his legs, waist, chest, until he stood in its center, heart exposed, mind quiet. "I've carried anger," he said. "Yes," she replied. "I didn't even know how much." "You don't need to." He looked down. His reflection was not alone. All around him, the river mirrored old faces. His mother's furrowed brow, the teacher who laughed at his question, the friend who disappeared without saying goodbye. "They hurt me," he said, voice low. "And you believed their pain was more valid than yours," she said. He swallowed. "I held on to it," he said. "All of it. I thought it made me strong." The river swirled around his hands. "No," she whispered. "It made you hard. That's not the same." He closed his eyes. "I want to let go." "Then give it to the river," she said. "Not with hate. Not with fear, but with trust. Trust that it knows what to do with sorrow." He cupped his hands in the water, lifted it to his forehead, let it trickle down his face like holy rain, and with every drop he whispered, "I forgive you." To the boy with the slingshot, to the mother who didn't understand, to the version of himself who stayed silent, "I forgive you. I forgive me." The river answered not with words, but with motion, with the grace of continuity, with the wisdom of impermanence. He stayed there for what might have been an hour or a breath, then stepped back to shore, lighter, not because the past had changed, but because he had. The old woman was gone. Only a single stone sat where she had been, smooth, round, balanced. He picked it up and placed it in his satchel, not as a burden, but as a reminder. Some things should be carried not as weight, but as witness, whisper, and reflection. And you, dear listener, what rivers flow quietly through the corners of your memory? Whose face still lives in the cold, shallow waters of your past? Tonight's story invites you not to judge your anger, but to lay it down, to stop worshiping the wound, to stop mistaking pain for identity. The river holds no grudges, not because it is naive, but because it is wise. It knows that to hold the past is to stop the present from flowing. So close your eyes now. Imagine stepping into that sacred stream. Feel the chill, the clarity, the surrender, and whisper. To the ones who hurt me, knowingly or not, I release you. To the mistakes I've made and carried like stones in my chest, I release you. To the version of me who still flinches, I release you. Let it all drift downstream. Let the river carry it away. Not because it didn't matter, but because you do. Part 6. The Bird in the Cage. The path narrowed as it climbed, winding like a forgotten melody between silent cliffs. The seeker's steps grew slower, not from exhaustion, but reverence. Each step felt like a bow to the earth, a soft apology for years of not listening. Must clung to his robe. In his satchel, the river stone sat warm against his chest. Not heavy, not forgotten, just present, like a friend who asked for nothing. As he reached a small plateau, he saw it. A wooden structure shaped like a shrine, but without walls. 4 pillars and a roof, open to the wind. Inside, a single cage hung from the ceiling, swinging gently. And in the cage, a bird. Its feathers were dark blue, tinged with gold. Its eyes sharp and sad. The seeker stepped forward. The bird cocked its head, studying him. Then it spoke. Not with sound, but with knowing. "You came here long ago," it said, "though you don't remember." The seeker's breath caught. I've never been here before." The bird blinked, slow. "No, but your fear has." He looked closer. The cage was not locked. No chains, no bars across the door. The latch rested loosely, as if never used. "Why don't you fly?" he asked. "Why didn't you?" the bird replied. He blinked, and then he remembered. Not one moment, but many. The job he stayed in far too long. The relationship he remained in, even after joy had gone quiet. The dreams he buried in the soil of responsibility. The one that had once screamed in his mind when people praised him. The one that said, "You're not enough. You're pretending. They'll find out." He touched his chest. "You were trying to protect me," he said softly. "But I don't need protection anymore. I need peace." The shadow melted into the floor like mist. One by one he acknowledged them. The version of him who wanted revenge. The one who resented his brother. The one who never forgave himself for giving up too soon. Each shadow, Once seen, softened, shrunk, rested, not erased, but integrated. Finally, only one remained, the shadow by the door. It was small, almost childlike. He knelt down. The shadow didn't run. "You," he whispered. This was the one who felt not good enough, the root, the first wound, the origin of the others. He opened his arms, and to his surprise, the shadow walked into them. It was cold, fragile, but real. He held it, held himself, for the first time, not to fix, not to silence, not to improve, but simply to say, "You belonged all along." The candlelight warmed. The old man smiled. "You've passed through the house of shadows," he said. "You are no longer haunted. You are inhabited." The seeker nodded, tired but clear, and when he turned to leave, no shadows followed, because none of them were behind him anymore. They were home, inside him, seen, and at peace. And now, dear listener, what shadows live quietly inside your house? What parts of you do you avoid, ignore, exile? Maybe it's the voice that judges. Maybe it's the fear of not being enough. Maybe it's a memory you refuse to call your own. Tonight's tale invites you to stop running. Because what you run from in yourself only grows louder. Close your eyes. Picture your own house. Walk inside. Look at who's waiting for you. And instead of turning on the lights, sit with them in the dark. Say, "I see you. I know why you came. You don't have to hide anymore." In the world of Zen, enlightenment is not perfection. It is wholeness. And wholeness comes not by erasing the dark, but by learning to love it. Part 8. The Old Man and the Teacup. By now, the seeker had stopped asking where he was. The journey had become less about destination and more about encounter. Each stop not a place on a map, but a part of himself he had forgotten, buried, or feared. The morning light broke gently through a thin veil of fog as he stepped onto a stone path that led to a small hut nestled among bamboo trees. The air smelled of damp leaves and old wood. Birds chirped somewhere nearby, but not loudly, as if they too were whispering. He saw an old man seated just outside the hut on a wooden stool, holding a teacup. He wasn't drinking, just holding. The seeker approached. The old man didn't look up, but he smiled. "Sit," he said. The seeker did. A long silence followed, the kind that doesn't rush. The seeker looked at the teacup. It was cracked, beautifully so, mended with golden lacquer along the fractures. Kintsugi again. "You're not drinking your tea," the seeker said. The old man chuckled, soft and gravelly. "I'm still tasting yesterday." The seeker blinked. "I'm not sure I understand." The old man held the cup higher. "This cup broke 50 years ago," he said. "Fell from my hand the night my wife died. I had been holding it when I got the news." He looked at the golden lines. "For years, I couldn't touch it. I put it away, not out of anger, but out of sorrow." The seeker listened, one hand over his satchel where the smooth river stones still rested. "I thought I had to let go," the old man continued, "that to heal meant to move on, to forget, to fill the space with something new." He set the cup down between them. "But that's not how tea works." The seeker waited. The old man smiled. "When you brew tea, the old leaves flavor the water. Even if you pour new water, the essence remains. Life is like that. You cannot remove the taste of what was. You can only learn to drink it without bitterness." He set the cup down between them. "But that's not how tea works." The seeker waited. The old man smiled. When you brew tea, the old leaves flavor the water. Even if you pour new water, the essence remains. Life is like that. You cannot remove the taste of what was. You can only learn to drink it without bitterness. A breeze rustled the bamboo. I miss her, he said simply. The seeker felt a sting in his own heart. I miss someone too, he whispered. The old man nodded, then stopped trying to forget her. Silence again. I thought forgetting was part of healing, the seeker said. No, the old man replied. Healing is not forgetting. It's remembering differently. He picked up the cup again. I used to see this and remember the moment it shattered, the grief, the pain, the silence afterward. He took a sip. Now I see the gold. The seeker breathed slowly. Let the words steep in him. I still feel guilt, he admitted. The old man turned toward him. Then let guilt be a teacher, not a jailer. Ask it what it wants you to learn. The seeker thought, it wants me to be better. Then bow to it, said the old man. Then let it go. They sat in stillness for a while. A kettle hissed gently behind them over an unseen fire. Would you like some tea? The old man asked. The seeker smiled. Yes, please. The old man disappeared inside and returned moments later with a second cup. This one was chipped but clean. He poured the tea slowly. The scent rose, green, earthy, calming. They drank together. And it wasn't about the tea. It was about what filled the space between sips. Not words, not silence, but presence. When the cup was nearly empty, the old man spoke once more. You know, he said, tea never asks to be perfect, only to be poured. The seeker held that thought like warm ceramic, and when he left the hut, he did not leave empty. He carried no new object, no token, but he carried something far rarer. The understanding that what breaks us also reveals us. And you, dear listener, what cup in your life has cracked? What moment did you place on a shelf untouched because it hurt too much to hold? Tonight's story invites you to return, not to reopen the wound, but to honor its shape. Healing isn't erasure. Healing is golden glue in the places that shattered. It is choosing to see differently. Close your eyes now. Breathe in. Call forth a memory, the one you haven't sipped in years. Hold it gently, not to drink from it, but to notice how it has changed, how you have changed, and then whisper, I still miss you, but now I drink with peace. Because some memories were never meant to be removed, only repoured in softer hands. Part 9. The Three Knots. The sun hovered low now, as if unsure whether to stay or leave. The seeker walked under golden light, through tall grasses that reached for his knees. His footsteps slowed, not from fatigue, but from the strange stillness that had entered him. It was the kind of stillness that follows deep seeing, that comes not from quiet around you, but quiet within you. He had wept, he had remembered, he had released, and still there was something, a tension in the chest, a whisper that said, not yet. The path brought him to a tree. It stood alone in a clearing, large and ancient, its bark wrinkled like the skin of an elder. From one of its thick, curved branches hung a length of weathered rope, 3 large knots tied into it, each tight, impossibly tight. Beneath the tree sat a woman, eyes closed, spine straight as the trunk behind her. She spoke without opening her eyes. You've come with the last weight. The seeker didn't respond. She opened her eyes and looked at him gently, not as if he were a stranger, but a story she'd once heard and remembered well. She gestured to the rope. "Go ahead," she said. "Touch what's been binding you." He stepped forward, ran his fingers over the first knot. It was coarse, rough, familiar. Immediately, a memory surfaced. He was young, maybe 7. His father had yelled, not cruelly, but sharply. The words were not important. What mattered was the fear, the confusion, the sudden belief, I did something wrong, I'm bad. The knot pulsed under his fingers. "This one," the woman said softly, "is the knot of shame." The seeker nodded. "I've carried it so long," he said. "I forgot it was separate from me." "Most do," she replied. "Shame is sneaky. It doesn't shout. It whispers. You don't deserve peace." He took a breath. "What do I do with it?" "See it," she said. "Name it. Thank it." He blinked. "Thank it?" "Yes," she said. "It was trying to protect you. It made you small so you wouldn't be hurt. But now, you are no longer 7. The seeker whispered, "Thank you for trying to keep me safe." And the knot, slowly, impossibly, loosened. Not unraveled, but softened. He moved to the second knot. It was tighter, hotter. The memory came fast. He was in his 20s, a betrayal, a friend's lie, the feeling of being cornered, exposed. His jaw had clenched. His fists had closed. He had vowed, "Never again will I trust so easily." The woman spoke. "This is the knot of resentment, anger that was never fully allowed to speak." "I thought I let it go," he said. "You let go of the memory, but not the contract." He looked at her. "What contract?" "The silent promise you made in that moment," she said. "To close, to harden, to never feel that pain again." He stared at the knot. It burned against his skin. And then he whispered, "I release the promise. I can be open again, even if I get hurt." The knot trembled, and then eased. Not disappeared, but no longer held in defiance. Then came the final knot. It was small, but dense. The moment it touched his skin, he felt it. A cold weight, a dull ache, a pressure in the throat, and then a vision. Himself, much older, sitting in a chair, watching the world go by, eyes tired, heart empty. He wasn't angry, he wasn't sad, just numb. "This," the woman said, "is the knot of regret." The seeker's hands shook. "It's not about something I did," he whispered. "It's about what I didn't." She nodded. "Regret is the ghost of unlived life." He closed his eyes. He remembered the painting he never finished, the apology he never gave, the small adventure he kept postponing until later. "I don't want to die with this knot," he said. "Then speak to it," she said, not as a scolding, but as an invitation. He opened his mouth and said, "You are not the end. You are a reminder. There is still time." The knot warmed and unraveled, not by force, but by willingness. When he stepped back, the rope hung loose, all 3 knots now open. The woman stood. "Now," she said, "there's room for the wind to pass through you." He bowed, and for the first time since childhood, he felt his chest expand, as if life could finally enter all the way in. Whisper and reflection. And you, dear listener. What knots live quietly beneath your ribs? What old vows are still tightening in your chest? Tonight's story is a gentle call to touch them, not to undo them all at once, not to tear them open, but to listen. Every knot in your heart began as a defense, and now they are invitations. So, before sleep arrives, place your hand over your heart, feel its rhythm, and whisper, I see the shame. I soften the resentment. I forgive the regret. Breathe deeply. Let each exhale loosen a thread, not to erase the knot, but to honor the story it holds. Because healing doesn't always come as release. Sometimes it comes as the courage to untie yourself slowly. Part 10. The Feather on the Wind. The knots were gone, and still the seeker walked. Not with urgency, nor hesitation, but with the rhythm of someone who had finally stopped fleeing and started listening. The wind was different here. It did not press, it invited. The trees no longer stood still. They swayed like dancers. Their branches gestured not stay nor go, but breathe. As he followed the path upward, something brushed against his foot. Light, weightless, a feather. Pale white rimmed with gray. So still it looked as though it had chosen that spot. He picked it up, and the wind changed. No longer random or restless. It began to move with intention, spiraling, drawing, leading. The seeker followed it, not with his legs alone, but with something older than motion, a trust. Eventually, the wind guided him to a ledge. There stood a figure, neither man nor woman, old but ageless, wearing robes the color of storm clouds before dawn. In their open hand, another feather. The seeker approached. "Who are you?" he asked softly. The figure looked at him with eyes full of sky. "I am the keeper of lightness," they said. "You have walked far with heavy things." The seeker bowed his head. "I didn't know how else to walk." The figure extended the feather. Most of us are taught to carry what was never meant to be held, to grip what was always meant to move through. The seeker took the feather, and it nearly lifted itself. The figure continued. There is a kind of suffering that comes not from pain, but from attachment to weight. He looked at the feather in his hand. "It doesn't want to stay," he said. "No," the figure agreed, "and neither does sorrow when you stop identifying with it." The seeker turned to face the valley below. He could see it all now. The river, the temple, the winding road, and in the distance the gate of forgetting. He had come far, and yet the burden that once bowed his shoulders had lifted. "Is it gone?" he asked. "The heaviness?" "No," the figure said. "It's still part of your story, but it no longer writes your steps." The seeker closed his eyes. He thought of all the moments he had tried to force stillness, tried to fix his thoughts, tried to be better or free. And now, there was only breath, no achievement, no arrival, just this moment. The wind rose again. The feather lifted slightly from his palm. The figure leaned close, their voice a hush. When the mind grips, the body tightens. When the body tightens, the soul forgets it has wings. He looked up. "What do I do now?" The figure smiled. "Let the wind teach you." And with that, they turned and walked into the air, not falling, not flying, but being carried. The seeker watched as the figure faded into mist. He stepped to the edge, not to leap, but to feel. The wind cradled his face. The feather danced in his open hand, not resisting, not clinging, and he knew. He had never needed to rise above his sorrow, only to stop holding it like a stone. He released the feather. It spun once, twice, then vanished into the sky, and with it went all the things he thought he could not let go of. Whisper and reflection. And you, dear listener, what weight have you confused for your identity? What sadness have you held so long that it now feels like your shadow? Tonight's story brings a soft truth. You were never meant to carry all of it. Some emotions are clouds, some are feathers. All are meant to move. Close your eyes, feel your body. Where is it heavy? Breathe in. Place your hand there, and with your next exhale, say, I allow this to move. Because freedom doesn't always come from effort. Sometimes it comes from yielding, from trusting the wind, from opening your palm. Let it go. Not because it was wrong to hold, but because now you are ready to fly. Part 11. The Woman Who Forgot Her Name. The path veered downward now, soft and damp beneath his feet. The seeker moved like one who had shed armor, no longer marching, no longer bracing. Each step was quiet permission. The trees thinned, and ahead lay a clearing where fog drifted low like memory. In the center stood a single chair, wooden, weathered, facing a mirror suspended in the air, untouched by frame or anchor. Sitting in the chair was a woman, gray robes, thin fingers. But what caught the seeker's attention was her face, not because it was strange, but because it was blank, no expression, no name behind her eyes. She turned to him as if waking from a long, slow sleep. Do I know you? She asked gently. He shook his head. I don't think so. She blinked, looked at the mirror again. I used to know myself, she said. There was a name, a story, a list of things I had done and not done. But one morning I woke up and it was all gone. Your memory? The seeker asked. She smiled faintly. No, my identity. He stepped closer, the fog curling around his ankles like a cat. You do it not to fix the past, but to free the present. He looked back at the scroll. I don't know if I can, he said. Then forgive yourself for not being ready, she said. That too is part of the garden. He breathed, then planted the scroll gently into the soil. The woman sprinkled the herbs over it. Within moments, a small shoot emerged, tender, pale green, quivering. He stared. Is it real? He asked. She smiled. It doesn't matter. And he understood. Because forgiveness is not about proof. It's about intention. She handed him a second scroll, blank. Now write the one you need most. He paused, then wrote, I forgive myself for abandoning parts of me I didn't yet know how to love. He folded it, pressed it into the earth. This time, the flower bloomed faster, brighter, and something inside him softened. Not because everything was okay, but because it no longer needed to be. Whisper and reflection. And you, dear listener, who lives inside your garden? Who stands just beyond your fence, still waiting for a pardon you never gave? Maybe it's a parent, a friend, a stranger. Maybe it's you. Tonight's story invites you not to forgive because it is noble, but because it is lightening. Forgiveness doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't excuse. It doesn't erase. It simply says, I no longer wish to carry what was never meant to grow in me. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Picture a garden. Kneel beside the soil and whisper, I may not be ready to forget. I may not be able to make it right, but I am willing to loosen the root. Plant that willingness, water it with patience, and let the silence do the rest. Because sometimes the most healing thing you can do is allow a flower to grow where you once thought nothing could. Part 13, The Whispering Wall. The seeker left the garden as gently as one would rise from prayer. His hands still carried the scent of the soil, and in his chest bloomed something wordless, a kind of quiet clarity that made no promises and required no explanations. The path curved east, where light filtered through the trees like slow breath. He walked for what felt like an entire afternoon, though time here had long since stopped keeping track. At last, he came to a stone corridor. Walls rose on both sides, smooth, tall, silent, but not entirely silent. As he stepped into the corridor, he heard it, a whisper, faint, soft, from the stones themselves. He paused, heart stilled. The whisper grew clearer, not louder, just closer. It didn't speak in words, not at first, only feeling, like the echo of something you once heard in a dream and woke up with tears on your pillow. He placed his hand on the wall, and it spoke, not to his ears, but to his memory. I remember when you tried to be invisible just to stay safe. I remember the moment you swallowed your truth because no one else seemed ready to hear it. I remember the night you wept but didn't let yourself make a sound. The seeker pulled his hand back, breath unsteady. "What is this place?" he whispered. A voice replied, not from the wall, but behind him. It belonged to a woman draped in deep blue, hair streaked with silver, eyes clear as rain. "This," she said, "is the place where your unsaid truths live." He turned to her. "I don't understand." She nodded, stepping closer to the wall. "We all have a wall inside us," she said, "made from every sentence we were too afraid to finish, every confession we never gave ourselves permission to speak." She traced a line along the stone. "They don't disappear. They echo until we're ready to listen." The seeker looked at the wall again. "What do I do?" She smiled. "You listen, you name, you release." She handed him a small piece of charcoal. He looked at her, uncertain. "Write one thing you've never said aloud," she said. "Not to shame it, but to let it breathe." He hesitated, then stepped to the wall. Slowly, trembling, he wrote, "I have often felt unlovable, even when others loved me." He stepped back. The words shimmered for a moment, then softened, melting into the stone like water into soil. The wall whispered back, "You are not unlovable. You are simply unused to being seen without armor." The seeker's knees softened. He leaned against the stone. Another whisper rose. "Say it again, but this time say it with compassion." He breathed and whispered, "I have felt unlovable because I learned to love myself last." A long silence followed. Then the wall sighed, not in sorrow, but in relief. The woman approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've begun," she said. "How many truths are still in there?" he asked quietly. She smiled sadly. "All of them, until you stop fearing your voice." He wrote again and again, each sentence pulled from the quietest rooms of his being. "I'm still angry at the way I settled. Sometimes I miss the version of me I never got to become. I once wished I didn't exist, and then hated myself for the wish." Each time he wrote, the wall absorbed the ink and gave back acceptance. Not answers, just presence. When his hand finally stilled, he felt taller. Not because anything was lifted, but because nothing needed to be hidden anymore. He turned to the woman. "What is this place called?" She smiled. "In Zen," she said, "it has no name, but you may call it the mirror you refused to look into until now." And with that, she faded into the stones. The seeker stood there a while longer, hand on the wall, then bowed, not to the structure, but to his own voice, whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, what sentences live inside your silence? What truths do you tiptoe around, hoping they'll dissolve if you just stay quiet enough? Tonight's tale invites you to listen, not to others, but to the part of you that has been waiting patiently for your attention. Close your eyes, picture a wall, place your hand against it, and whisper, "What haven't I said because I feared who would hear it?" Then speak, not with volume, but with honesty. Say it once. Say it with tenderness. Say it because your soul deserves to be heard, even if only by you. Because sometimes the wall isn't holding you back. It's holding you together until you're ready to rewrite what you once kept in the dark. Part 14. The Bell with No Sound. The corridor behind him faded like mist lifting from a pond. The seeker walked onward, not faster, not slower, simply deeper, into himself, into the stillness the wall had revealed. The trees grew farther apart now, as if giving space for something larger than thought to rise. And then, a bell tower, simple, stone and wood, no doors, no stairs, no ropes. At the top, a bell, large, bronze, silent. No wind stirred, no clapper hung within it, just the presence of a bell that could not ring. He stood at his base, and there, in the shade of the tower, sat a young monk, eyes closed, breathing slow, palms upturned on his lap. The seeker waited. The monk opened his eyes. "Ah," he said, "you've come to hear what isn't spoken." The seeker bowed slightly. "I thought this was the bell of silence." The monk smiled. "No, this is the bell of stillness." The seeker tilted his head. "Isn't that the same?" The monk gestured to a rock nearby. "Silence is the absence of sound. Stillness is the presence of being." The seeker sat beside him. "What happens when the bell rings?" he asked. The monk's smile deepened, but he said nothing. Instead, he raised one finger, touched his own chest, and whispered, "It already has." A breeze stirred, leaves barely rustled. The seeker closed his eyes and began to listen. At first, all he heard was the mind. Fragments of thought, half-finished sentences, old voices trying to find their place in a moment that didn't need them. But beneath that, another sound. No, not a sound. A resonance. The sense of something true without language, like the hush of a forest right before dawn, or the breath of someone you love sleeping beside you. A stillness so complete it had its own gravity. And then, he felt it, not with ears, but with the center of his being. The bell had rung, not once, not loudly, but continuously, since before he was born. It had never stopped. Only he had been too noisy to notice. Tears slipped from his eyes without weight. "I didn't know," he whispered. The monk nodded. "We fill our days with doing, our hearts with noise, and wonder why we feel hollow. But it is in the pause that truth returns." The seeker placed a hand over his chest. "What now?" "Now," said the monk, "you walk not with questions, but with awareness." He handed the seeker nothing, only nodded, and that was enough. The seeker rose, looked one last time at the bell above. It still had no clapper, still made no sound, and yet it echoed inside him like a song that needed no melody. Whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, when was the last time you heard nothing? Not silence made of absence, but stillness made of presence. Tonight's story invites you to stop trying to be still and simply notice that you already are. Close your eyes. Place one hand over your chest. Feel. Not your thoughts, not your roles, just being. Let that awareness ring through you, soft, ancient, and steady, and whisper, I don't need more answers. I need more listening. Because the bell of awakening does not shatter walls or scream truths. It hums beneath your skin, always ringing, always waiting. And now, you are quiet enough to hear it. Part 15. The Sand and the Footprints. By now, the seeker had stopped looking for guides. He had begun to feel them before they appeared. In the wind, in the shape of a tree, in the pause between one breath and the next. Still, when the forest opened into an expanse of sand, he paused. It was not desert, but sacred emptiness, the kind that made the sky feel larger than it should. He stepped onto the warm sand. It held him gently, then gave way. With each footfall, he left a clear, deep print. Behind him, his steps wrote a slow story of presence. But something else caught his eye. Footprints, not his, small, faint, winding along the same path ahead. He followed. The sun glowed low, gold and slow. There was no destination, only footprints. Sometimes they doubled back. Sometimes they paused in one place. Sometimes they vanished, then reappeared. After a while, he saw a figure sitting cross-legged in the sand. A man, older than stone, younger than wind. Eyes closed. Not meditating, simply being. The seeker approached. The man opened one eye, smiled. Walked a long way, didn't you? The seeker nodded. But I don't know where I'm going. You're here, the man said. The seeker looked down at the footprints in the sand. Are these yours? The old man chuckled. Some. Some are yours. Some belong to who you used to be. The seeker sat beside him, frowning. I don't understand. The man scooped a handful of sand and let it fall through his fingers. Every choice leaves a print, he said, even the ones you didn't make. The seeker looked out over the expanse. I've been haunted by things I didn't do, words I didn't say, love I didn't offer when I should have. The man nodded. And yet you kept walking. The seeker's voice dropped. Sometimes I want to go back and erase my prints. The old man's face softened. You can't. Then what do I do? The man leaned closer. You learn to walk differently. Silence. Wind stirred. The seeker looked again at the trail behind him. The footprints seemed heavier, deeper, like small bowls carved into time. I hurt people, he said, without meaning to. The old man nodded again. We all do. Intention does not erase impact, but presence allows healing. The seeker blinked. But they may never forgive me. That's not yours to control, the man said, but you can offer a different print now. He pointed behind them. In Zen, we call this practice walking without dragging the past behind your feet. The seeker whispered, I've never known how. The man rose, walked a few steps forward, then paused. Walk beside me, he said. The seeker stood, matched his pace. They walked in silence for a while. Then the old man said, "Lift your heel gently. Let your step touch without gripping. This is how we walk when we know every step leaves memory." The seeker adjusted. The sand accepted him more kindly now. His prints grew softer. The old man looked over and said, "There, you're no longer walking from pain, you're walking with it." The seeker's eyes shimmered. "What happens to the old prints?" "They fade," the man said, "but they remain as part of the landscape that shaped you." "And those I hurt?" "They may carry their own sand," he said. "But when you walk gently now, the wind changes for everyone." The seeker stopped, turned around. The trail behind him was a winding poem of heavy and soft steps. And suddenly he was grateful for both. He bowed, not to the man, but to the path. And now, dear listener, whose footprints have you tried to outrun? Whose path still echoes beneath your own? Tonight's story reminds us that we all leave impressions, but we also have the power to walk differently. You may never erase what you've done, but you can offer presence now, gentleness now, care now. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your feet on the bed. Imagine sand beneath them, warm, forgiving, ancient. With your next breath, whisper, "I walk forward not to forget the past, but to change the way I leave the future behind me." Because healing is not about retracing old steps. It is about walking forward, so softly, that even your shadow feels safe to follow. Part 16. The Child Under the Tree. Dusk was falling like soft ash from an invisible fire. The seeker stepped beyond the sands and into a field ringed with silent trees. Their branches curled low to the ground, as if sheltering secrets long forgotten. Wind moved through their leaves like breath through a flute, slow, ancient, forgiving. In the very center stood a single fig tree, large and crooked, its roots like hands holding the earth. And under that tree sat a child, small, barefoot, arms wrapped around knees, face tucked into the crook of their elbow. They didn't move as the seeker approached. And strangely, the seeker didn't feel the need to ask anything. Not yet. He sat down a short distance away. The child raised their head slowly, their eyes familiar. Their face, his own, but softer, unweathered, open. The seeker inhaled sharply. "You're me." The child nodded, said nothing. Silence stretched between them like a thread tied at both ends. The seeker broke it gently. "I left you here a long time ago." The child tilted their head. "I waited." Tears rose without effort, the kind that aren't dramatic but inevitable. "I didn't know how to hold you," the seeker said. "I was afraid. You were too soft, too needy, too honest." "You were trying to survive," the child replied. The seeker looked down at his hands. "I thought if I grew up fast enough, I could outrun you." "You never did," the child said simply. "You just made me quiet." Silence again. The tree above them shifted in the wind. A fig dropped softly to the ground nearby. Neither of them moved to touch it. "Do you remember the dream?" the child asked. The seeker blinked. "Which one?" "The one about building a hut beside a stream with books and a dog." The seeker smiled painfully. "I stopped believing I deserved it." The child looked away. "I didn't." The seeker crawled closer. "I want to listen now." The child said nothing, but uncurled their arms. The seeker gently reached out, and for the first time in decades, held the child he had once abandoned. Their bodies did not merge, they coexisted. He did not absorb the child, he welcomed them home. I missed you, he whispered. I never left, the child said. I was just waiting for you to stop pretending you didn't need me. They sat like that as the sky deepened into indigo. Eventually, the child stood and took the seeker's hand. Will you walk with me now? The seeker asked. The child nodded. Only if you let me speak sometimes. I will. And cry if I need to. I will hold you. And laugh at small things. I'll join you. Together they walked beyond the fig tree, no longer separated by time or shame, but braided together, truth and tenderness, man and child, finally whole. Whisper and reflection. And you, dear listener, where is the child you once were? Do they still sit somewhere quiet in your heart, curled, quiet, waiting? Tonight's story asks a question few dare to face. What did you abandon in order to survive? And are you ready now to return? Close your eyes. Picture a tree. Beneath it, your younger self. Don't rush them. Sit nearby. Let them speak first. Maybe they won't speak at all. Maybe they'll just look at you with wide, old eyes. When they do, whisper, I remember you. I'm sorry I left. You don't have to hide anymore. Then offer your hand. Walk together. Not to fix the past, but to finally carry its innocence forward into the soft soil of now. Part 17. The Mirror That Didn't Reflect. The path now was neither stone nor sand, but memory. The seeker walked beside his inner child, no longer ahead or behind. Their footsteps did not echo. They blended, like melody and harmony, one never silencing the other. Ahead rose a structure unlike any he had seen. A single room made entirely of mirrors. Walls, ceiling, floor. But strangely, no reflections. He stepped closer. The child stayed outside. Inside the mirrored room, everything shimmered, but nothing looked back. No face, no figure, only light. At the center stood a woman in gray. Her eyes were closed, hands folded over her chest. She did not look up as he entered. You're ready, she said quietly. He looked around. But where am I? The hall of perception, she said, where illusions fall quiet. He turned to one of the mirror walls. Still, no image. Why don't I see myself? Because you're not here to see who you think you are, she replied. You're here to see who you are when no one's watching. The seeker stepped closer to a panel. I've always seen myself through others, he said. She nodded. That's how the world trains us, to build a self from feedback, praise, rejection, comparison, roles, labels. He touched the glass. Nothing touched back. The woman continued, but what if there's a version of you that exists even when no mirror answers? He stood still. Inside him, something began to loosen. Not a memory, but a shape, a familiar shape he'd worn like armor. Good son, polite man, spiritual one, strong one, wounded one. He looked around again. The mirrors remained blank. You don't need them, she said softly, because true self is not a reflection. It's a presence. He breathed slowly. I'm not who they said I was. No. I'm not even who I said I was. No. He fell to his knees. I don't know who I am. Finally, She opened her eyes and smiled. "Good," she whispered. "Now we begin." He stared at the empty floor. "What do I do?" "Remove the question." He looked up. She knelt beside him. "In Zen," she said, "we don't ask 'who am I' to find an answer. We ask it to exhaust the answers until only truth remains." He looked again into the mirror, and for a brief, fleeting moment, he saw not a face, but a light. No shape, no gender, no history, just being, undisturbed, unlabeled, free. Then it faded, and that was enough. He stood, turned to leave. The woman did not follow. "Will I ever see myself again?" he asked. She smiled gently. "You already are. You're just no longer confusing the mirror with the moon." And now, dear listener, how long have you been looking for yourself in reflections, in people's opinions, in roles, in the echo of past versions you no longer live inside? Tonight's story is not a lesson. It's a release. Close your eyes. Imagine a room full of mirrors. Step inside. Look around. See nothing. Feel everything. And then ask not, "Who am I?" but, "What remains when I no longer perform?" That stillness you sense, that silence, that presence, that is you. Always was, always will be, and no mirror can ever hold it. Part 18. The Tea of Tears. By now, the seeker no longer asked, "What comes next?" The journey had taught him the next step always appears when the heart is ready, not when the mind demands. The path opened into a small valley wrapped in morning mist. The air held the smell of wet leaves, firewood, and something subtle, familiar, like memory steeped too long in silence. At the edge of the clearing stood a tea house, low and wide, with sliding paper walls and smoke curling from its chimney like a sigh. He stepped inside without knocking. A woman waited, elderly, still, wearing robes stained with water and time. She did not speak. She bowed. He bowed in return. Then she gestured to a cushion. He sat. Between them, a low wooden table. On it, a single ceramic teapot, 2 cups, and a small cloth. No words, only the soft sound of her pouring the tea. Steam rose between them, ghost-like and kind. She handed him a cup. He accepted it with both hands. The aroma struck something deep in him. It was not just tea. It was the scent of an old memory, his grandmother. A rainy afternoon, a small chipped mug, and the sound of wind against window glass. He looked into the tea. The surface trembled faintly, and so did his chest. "I don't know why," he whispered, "but I feel like crying." She nodded. "Then cry." He blinked. "I don't even know what it's about." "You don't need to," she said gently. "Some tears are from now. Others are older than you." He looked down at the tea again. A single drop fell from his eye into the cup. The surface rippled. "I've always tried to be composed," he said, "to be wise, to be above the mess." "And how has that worked?" she asked. He laughed, broken but honest. "I've been a dam holding back oceans." She poured herself a cup, sipped slowly. He raised his own to his lips. Warm, bitter, comforting. And with the first sip, it began. Not a sob, not a scream, but the slow, quiet release of years. He wept, shoulders trembling, eyes stinging, hands cupped around warmth. The woman said nothing. She let his crying fill the room like incense. When the cup was empty, she refilled it, again and again, until his body stopped shaking, until the tears ran dry, until the silence returned. Not empty this time, but cleansed. "I'm sorry," he said. She smiled. "For what?" "For feeling what was already inside you?" He looked at her, eyes red but open. "I thought healing meant holding it together." "No," she said. "Healing means letting it fall apart safely." She placed a folded cloth beside him. "For the tears that remain tomorrow." He nodded, folded it gently, pressed it to his chest. "What kind of tea is this?" he asked. She smiled. "The kind made from things you never allowed yourself to feel." And you, dear listener, when was the last time you cried without needing a reason? When was the last time you let yourself soften without shame? Tonight's story offers a warm cup, not to fix you, but to melt what has long been frozen. Close your eyes. Picture yourself seated in a quiet tea room, a cup before you. Within it, the tears of your younger self, your older self, your silent self. Lift it, sip gently, and whisper, "It's okay to feel. It's okay to shake. It's okay to be tender." Because some healing doesn't come through strength. It comes through surrender, through warm hands, through quiet rooms, through the taste of salt and steam. And tonight, you are allowed to let go. Part 19. The Path Without Steps. The seeker left the tea house with salt on his cheeks and warmth in his hands. Not the warmth of the cup, but the warmth of having finally let himself feel. The world outside had shifted, not in shape, but in texture. Every leaf looked softer, every sound less urgent. Even the wind, once a passerby, now felt like a companion. He followed the path out of the valley, but soon the trail began to vanish. Not suddenly, just gently. Like a dream dissolving in daylight. One moment there were stones beneath his feet. The next, nothing. No road, no sign, no direction. Only openness. He paused, looked around. "Where am I?" A voice replied, "Where you've always been." He turned. A figure stood behind him, draped in robes of ash and starlight. Neither young nor old, neither male nor female. Their face was clear but unremarkable, like the face you see in your dreams when you're dreaming of no one. "This is the path without steps," the figure said. "The place where the journey stops pretending to be a journey." The seeker frowned. "I don't understand." The figure nodded. "You've been walking to become, to find, to heal. But tell me, right now, in this moment, what are you missing?" He hesitated, thought carefully. "Nothing," he said. The figure smiled. "Exactly." They gestured to the space around them. "There is no path now because there is nowhere else to go." The seeker looked at his feet. "Then what do I do?" "You stop doing," the figure replied. "You begin being." He stood silently. The earth beneath him neither pulled nor pushed. It simply was. He breathed, in, out. There was no next step to reach, no past step to regret. Only this breath, this moment. The figure walked in a wide circle, barefoot on nothing. "This," they said, "is where effort ends and presence begins." The seeker closed his eyes. A memory rose. Years ago, sitting at a traffic light, thinking about groceries, thinking about debt, thinking about someone he missed but hadn't texted. He remembered believing, "If I just get through this week, then I can breathe." But the breath never came. Until now. He opened his eyes. "I've spent so much of life trying to arrive." The figure nodded. "And now?" He smiled softly. "I've already arrived." They bowed. "You are no longer a seeker. You are a presence." And just like that, they vanished. No smoke, no light, no drama, just gone. And yet, they had not left, because now the stillness was inside him. The seeker, no longer seeking, stood quietly in the middle of nowhere and realized nowhere was exactly where peace had always lived, whisper and reflection. And you, dear listener, how long have you been walking? Not with your legs, but with your longing, toward happiness, toward healing, toward some version of peace that always seems a little further ahead. Tonight's story asks you to pause, not to quit, but to notice. You are already standing on what you were chasing. Close your eyes, let go of the next step, breathe into this one, and whisper, "I am not behind. I am not late. I am not broken on the way to wholeness. I am here, and here is enough." Because the deepest journey you'll ever take is the one that teaches you how to stop walking in order to arrive. Part 20. The Lantern of Regret. Night had fallen again, not with darkness, but with stillness, a kind of quiet that only comes after many long truths have been spoken. The seeker, now no longer chasing, but simply present, walked slowly through an open field of tall grass silvered by moonlight. Each blade swayed as if bowing. In the distance, he saw a warm glow, a soft golden flicker floating in midair, like a firefly that had chosen not to blink. He approached. The glow belonged to a lantern, old, wooden, hung from nothing, floating just above the earth. Inside it, a tiny flame danced, not with fury, but with memory. He stood before it, unsure. Then he heard the voice. "This is the lantern of regret," it whispered, "where the things you cannot undo come to be seen, gently." The seeker closed his eyes, and the memories came, unasked, but not unwelcome. A woman he loved but could not stay with. A child he once ignored, too tired to listen. A lie he told because the truth felt too costly. A phone call he never made. Each one appeared inside the lantern flame, not to burn him, but to be acknowledged. He knelt, whispered, "I see you. I know you're part of me, but I no longer let you steer my life." The flame flickered. The voice returned. "Regret is not poison when met with presence. It becomes light, a lantern that can guide instead of haunt." Tears welled again, not from pain, but from clarity. "I thought I had to forget," he said. "No," the voice replied. "You only had to forgive." He looked up, saw for the first time other lanterns in the distance, dozens, hundreds, each one glowing softly. Are they others' regrets? No, the voice said. They are yours too. Every version of you that once made a choice, hoping it was the right one. The seeker stood. He did not run from the lantern. He bowed to it. And when he rose, the flame had changed. No longer a picture of his past, but a soft, golden glow that cast no shadow. And now, dear listener, what regret do you carry like a lantern turned inward, lighting only the ache never the way. Tonight's story is not here to erase your past. It's here to offer something far kinder, understanding. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time, with the heart you had. And that is not a sentence. It is a blessing. Close your eyes. Picture your regret. Hold it like a lantern. Whisper to it. You no longer need to haunt me. You can guide me instead. Then breathe and watch the flame soften, because even regret, when loved, can become a light that shows the way forward, not to perfection, but to peace. Part 21. The Hand That Let Go. The lantern behind him continued to glow, but it no longer clung to his steps. It simply stayed, like a kind memory, present but no longer heavy. The seeker walked with slow confidence, like someone who had learned to measure distance not in miles, but in mercy. The path was open now, wide, empty, but not lonely. Ahead, he saw a solitary figure standing near the edge of a cliff, overlooking a vast sea of clouds. The figure was still, one arm outstretched, fingers open, as if having just released something. The seeker approached. It was a man, tall, barefoot, back turned, and in his palm, nothing. But the emptiness held meaning. The seeker stood beside him. The man didn't look his way. You're almost at the end, he said, but not until you let go. The seeker nodded slowly. I've let go of so much. Yes, the man replied, but not this. The seeker frowned. He searched inside himself. The regrets were quiet now. The fears softened. Even the shame had learned to rest. But there was something still clenched, not in his thoughts, but in his hand. He looked down at his palm. It was closed, tightly. And as he breathed, he began to feel what lived there. A name, a moment, a hope, a longing. The voice in his mind whispered, "But what if you let this go, and it never returns?" He turned to the man. What if it was the last piece of joy I ever had? The man looked at him for the first time, eyes calm, timeless. If it's meant for you, he said, it will not need to be gripped. The seeker stared at his hand and understood. He was still holding not a person, not a memory, but control, the need to know, the need to be right, the need to have it turn out the way he once imagined. He swallowed. His fingers trembled, then slowly opened. His palm faced the sky, empty, available, at peace. A wind rose, not fierce, not sudden, but welcoming. The man beside him smiled. You see, he said, you were never holding on to protect anything. You were holding on because you feared what freedom would feel like. The seeker exhaled deeply. He didn't feel lighter. He felt true. No illusions, no shoulds, no pretending. Just a hand that had finally remembered how to release. And for the first time in his life, he felt the sky within his grasp. Whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, what are you still holding? Not in your arms, but in your expectations, in your tight fists, in your whispered, "It wasn't supposed to be this way." Tonight's story offers not a command, but an invitation to open, not to lose, but to trust. Close your eyes. Picture your hand. Notice what it's clenching. Ask, what would happen if I stopped gripping this? Then, gently, let it open. Let the sky in and whisper, I release the outcome. I release the need to control. I trust what remains. Because true healing isn't always about getting something back. Sometimes it's about discovering that what you feared to lose was never the source of your peace. You were, all along. Part 22. The Wind and the Bamboo. The sky had shifted again. Now it was the color of ash warmed by candlelight. Neither day nor night, but something in between. The seeker walked in quiet. His open hand no longer trembled. It simply moved with him, as natural as breath. Ahead, a narrow trail curved into a grove of tall, slender bamboo. The moment he stepped beneath them, the wind stirred. Not wildly, but playfully. It slipped through the bamboo like fingers through wind chimes, making each stalk sway gently, whispering against the next in a soft, living rhythm. He paused, listened. Each creak, each bend, each motion a song of yielding. From somewhere within the grove, a voice called out, strong things break, but soft things bend. He followed the sound. A monk stood among the bamboo, robes the color of earth. He moved slowly, hands tracing the air like a dance he'd learned from the wind itself. The seeker approached. The monk did not stop moving. He gestured for the seeker to join him. No words, just movement. The seeker hesitated, then mirrored the monk's arms. Up, down, wide, close. He felt awkward at first, unbalanced, but the bamboo swayed around him in rhythm, and soon his limbs remembered something older than thought. After a time, the monk spoke. You've worked so hard to be strong. The seeker nodded. It was the only way I knew to stay safe. And did it keep you safe? The seeker hesitated. No, it just kept me from feeling. The monk stopped moving, stood still. Strength is not the absence of pain, he said. It is the willingness to be moved by life and not break. He reached out, touched a bamboo stalk. See this? The seeker nodded. When the wind comes, it bends. It doesn't resist, it doesn't fight. It simply allows. The wind picked up. The bamboo danced. A sound like breath woven into silence. I've spent so long bracing for life, the seeker whispered, waiting for the next loss, the next ache, preparing myself to survive it. The monk looked at him. And what if surviving isn't the goal? The seeker blinked. What else is there? Living, the monk said, letting the wind move through you, letting life touch you fully, without hardening in defense. The seeker closed his eyes, felt the breeze on his face. He didn't resist it, didn't flinch. He let it pass through. And for the first time, he realized he didn't need to be strong. He needed to be real, which meant vulnerable, which meant flexible, which meant like the bamboo. When he opened his eyes, the monk was gone, but the lesson remained. In every sway, in every hush, in the soft, tall stalks around him, and in the new softness within. Whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, where in your life have you mistaken rigidity for resilience? Where have you held tight your jaw, your heart, your voice, believing that to soften was to surrender? Tonight's story invites you to look to the bamboo. It does not resist the storm, it moves with it, and so survives. So tonight, close your eyes. Feel the wind of your own life. Change, uncertainty, loss, hope. Don't brace, don't push, just breathe. And whisper, I can bend without breaking. I can soften without disappearing. I can feel without fear. Because true strength is not a wall, it is a root, flexible, alive, still standing after the wind passes. And you, too, will still be standing. Part 23. The Monastery of Time. The grove gave way to silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence of reverence. The seeker emerged into a valley where everything seemed older than memory. Mountains rose like sleeping monks on all sides, and in the center stood a monastery built of stone and wind, cloaked in creeping vines and moss that glowed faintly in the dusk. No bell, no gate, only a single inscription over the arched doorway. Enter only when you are tired of waiting. The seeker smiled faintly. He entered. Inside, the air was still, thick with the scent of parchment, cedar, and candle smoke. No voices, only the sound of time breathing. A hallway stretched before him, lined with rooms on either side. Each room had a small sign above it. He passed one. What could have been? Another. If only I had. Another still. Someday. He paused. Each doorway hummed with memories. Tempting. Calling. He stepped toward one labeled, "Too Late." His hand reached for the frame. But before he could enter, a figure appeared beside him. An old monk, eyes kind, hands folded in his sleeves like time itself. The monk spoke softly. "This is where people come to delay healing." The seeker looked at him. "I thought this place would show me the past, teach me how to let it go." "It can," said the monk, "but only if you stop treating time as something to control." The seeker furrowed his brow. "I've spent most of my life thinking in time. When did it begin? How long will this last? What if I waste it?" The monk nodded. "Time becomes a prison when it becomes a measurement of your worth." He guided the seeker toward the end of the hall. There, a single door. Plain, unnamed. The monk opened it. Inside, a circular room. No windows, no clocks, just a single cushion in the center. "Sit," the monk said. He did. The monk lit a candle, then left. And for the first time in his life, the seeker stopped counting. He didn't count minutes, didn't measure progress, didn't wonder what came next. He simply breathed. One breath, then another, then another. Thoughts came and went. Time came and went. Eventually, it all became the same. No past to regret, no future to fix, only presence, only now. He lost track of how long he sat, maybe hours, maybe moments. When he finally stood, the room looked the same, but inside, something was different. He walked back down the hallway. The doors no longer hummed. The sign above each room had faded, not erased, just no longer necessary. Time had not healed him. Time had stopped needing to. Whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, how much of your suffering comes from time, from racing against it, from fearing you've missed it, from waiting for it to rescue or punish you? Tonight's story offers you no schedule, only stillness. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself inside the monastery. No clocks, no deadlines, no doors to regret, just a cushion and your breath and the truth. Healing doesn't follow time, it follows presence. So whisper, "I release the story of too late. I return to the moment where life always lives. now. Because freedom is not found by fixing time, but by stepping outside it. And in this breath, right now, you are already free. Part 24, The Last Door. The monastery of time faded behind him like breath fading on a mirror. The seeker did not walk quickly. There was no need to rush when everything that once chased him had already been bowed to, felt, forgiven, or released. The world had grown quiet, not empty, but complete. He reached the edge of a stone path that led to a small hill. And at the top of the hill stood a door. Freestanding, no walls, no hinges, no lock. Just a simple wooden door, standing alone in the open air, bathed in the soft light of early dawn. Carved into its center were two words: all done. The seeker stood before it, not with anticipation, but with awareness. He had no idea what lay beyond, and for the first time in his life, that no longer frightened him. Still, he hesitated, because this, he knew, was the place where all journeys end, and where new ones begin without the need to call them by name. A voice spoke behind him. You don't have to open it. He turned. It was the old woman from the garden, the one who'd taught him to bury his forgiveness like seeds. She stood with her palms open. Many come this far and stay, she said. They sit in the field and build homes of memory. They create altars from the stories they've survived. He nodded. I've done that before, he said. Mistook healing for a place to hide. She smiled, then stepped aside. It's your choice. Step through or stay. But know this. The door doesn't lead to answers. It leads to unfolding. He placed his hand on the wood, warm, smooth, alive. He breathed. And in that breath, the faces returned. The child under the tree, the stone that cried, the monk with no sound, the bird in the cage, the tea of tears, the lantern of regret. His own hand, once clenched, now open. They weren't memories anymore. They were him, woven in. Not steps on a path, but threads in a tapestry. And he no longer needed to hold on to them, because they would never leave. They were the doorway. He smiled, then whispered to the door, I'm ready. And it opened, not with sound, not with light, but with silence. The kind of silence that births stars. The kind of silence that says, come in. Not to be more, but to be exactly what you already are. He stepped through and vanished into what cannot be named. Whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, you too have walked a long way, not with your feet, but with your feelings, through pain, through memory, through forgiveness, through letting go. And now, you stand before your own last door. No one will push you through. You are already whole. You are already home. But if you feel called, even softly, then step forward, not to finish anything, but to begin, living without needing to be fixed. Close your eyes. Place your hand over your chest. Feel the stillness, and whisper, all is done, and all is still becoming. I no longer wait for peace. I carry it with me. Because the final door is not a place. It is a return to the self who never left. Part 25. The Final Whisper. There was no road anymore, no path, no stone, no map. Only breath, only awareness, only the soft unfolding of something that didn't need to be named. The seeker had stepped through the last door and found no destination waiting, no celebration, no finish line, no grand enlightenment wrapped in thunder or light. Just this: stillness, a lake without ripples, a sky that no longer asked questions, and a silence that held him like an old friend. He sat. Where? It didn't matter, because presence is not a place, it is a way of being. In time, a figure appeared beside him, not from mist, not from memory, just arrived. It was the child again, the younger self, but now, older, radiant, unbound. They sat together, shoulder to shoulder, and the child whispered, "You don't need to do anything anymore." The seeker closed his eyes. "I don't even need to heal," he replied. The child nodded, "Because you're not broken." A breeze passed, not to disturb, but to remind, of movement, of breath, of softness. Then came the bird, once caged, now gliding above them in wide, unhurried circles. Then the bell, silent still, but echoing within. Then the river, its current humming in the heart. Then the bamboo, swaying somewhere in the soul. All of them, not visitors, but parts of him. He smiled, not because he had found something, but because he had stopped searching. And for the first time in a very long time, he listened. Not to thoughts, not to memory, but to the most ancient sound in the universe. The sound of peace. It did not speak, it breathed, and within that breath a whisper formed, not from outside, but from within the folds of his spirit. Nothing more is needed. You are already whole. Rest now. You've come home. He laid down, on earth, on sky, on silence, and the child placed a hand on his chest. As the stars blinked open above them, one by one, like lanterns finally remembering how to shine. Whisper and reflection. And now, dear listener, this is the final whisper. Not an ending, but a soft returning. You've walked with us for many stories. You've cried, released, forgiven, unclenched. And now, you don't have to hold anything anymore. Not your name, not your pain, not your past. Just let it all rest. Close your eyes, take one slow breath, and whisper, "I am safe. I am held. I am free to let go." Let the stories drift into your chest like warm air. Let your thoughts settle like feathers on the floor. And as you drift into sleep, remember, the healing has already happened. The peace is already here, and you are already whole. Good night, dear soul. You are home. A gentle closing whisper to you. And now, dear friend, as the final tale settles into stillness, we wish to thank you, not just for listening, but for feeling, for walking this long, gentle road with us, for opening your heart to the softness it deserves, for allowing your pain to be seen without shame. In this sacred silence, may you remember, you are not your past, you are not your sorrow, you are not the story of your suffering. You are breath. You are presence. You are a still pond rippling gently under starlight. Whenever the old pain returns, and it might, you do not have to fight it. You only need to sit beside it, listen, and whisper. You can rest now. I no longer need you to protect me. We hope these stories have planted seeds of light within you. Let them grow, quietly. Water them with kindness, nourish them with stillness, and watch as something new blooms. Before we say goodnight, if these stories have touched something sacred in you, we invite you to subscribe to this podcast or audiobook channel, share this series with someone you love, or simply return here whenever your heart needs rest. As the Buddha once taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. So let this present moment be your refuge. Let this stillness hold you. And may you sleep tonight not as someone seeking healing, but as someone who has already begun to remember their wholeness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now close your eyes and let go. Good night.